In 1988, a man walked into a small office in New York with $5 million he had borrowed and a burning need to prove something. That man was Larry Fink. And what he built from that moment would quietly become the most powerful financial institution in human history. You've never seen their logo on a store. You've never bought one of their products. But right now, BlackRock owns a piece of almost every company you've ever heard of. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, ExxonMobil, your bank, your pension, possibly even the house you live in. This is the story of how that happened. Larry Fink grew up in a middle-class family in California. He studied at UCLA, got a job at First Boston, and by his late 20s, he was one of the most talented bond traders on Wall Street. In 1986, he made a single bad prediction about interest rates and lost $100 million in one quarter. He was pushed out, humiliated, finished by Wall Street standards. But that loss changed everything, because Fink became obsessed with one question. How do you manage risk so that something like that never happens again? In 1988, he and 7 partners borrowed $5 million from Blackstone and started a new firm. They called it BlackRock. Their idea was simple but radical. Build a company that didn't just move money, but truly understood the risk behind every single investment. To do that, they built a system. They called it Aladdin, Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. Aladdin could analyze thousands of financial scenarios simultaneously. It could see risk that no human team could spot manually. Banks, pension funds, and governments had never seen anything like it. Word spread fast. BlackRock didn't just manage money well. They could tell other institutions exactly how exposed they were to risk across their entire portfolio. The biggest banks in the world started paying BlackRock to run Aladdin on their assets. By 2008, BlackRock was already one of the largest asset managers on Earth. Then the financial crisis hit, and everything changed. When the global banking system collapsed, the US Federal Reserve needed someone who could actually understand what was inside all these toxic mortgage assets. They called BlackRock. The US government hired BlackRock to help clean up the mess. Not a government agency, not a central bank, a private company, Larry Fink's company. That moment defined what BlackRock truly was. Not just a fund manager, but the institution the world turns to when the financial system breaks down. After the crisis, BlackRock's growth became almost impossible to comprehend. They acquired Merrill Lynch investment managers. They bought Barclays Global Investors, which gave them iShares, the world's largest ETF platform. Suddenly, every time an ordinary person invested in an index fund, part of that money flowed through BlackRock. Today, BlackRock manages a staggering $14 trillion in assets. To put that in perspective, that is more money than the entire economies of Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom combined. No single entity in human history has ever controlled this much capital. BlackRock now manages more wealth than every nation on Earth, except for the United States and China. But the number that should really make you stop is this one. Aladdin monitors an estimated $25 trillion in assets globally. Massive blocks of the world's wealth flow directly through BlackRock's system. Central banks use it. Pension funds use it. Insurance companies use it. When the European Central Bank needed help during economic crises they called BlackRock. This is a private company with no elected officials, no public mandate, and more financial influence than most governments on Earth. Larry Fink understood something early that most people still don't fully grasp, that in the modern world, the real power doesn't come from owning factories or armies. It comes from owning a small percentage of everything, everywhere, all at once. BlackRock doesn't control companies by giving orders. They control them by being the largest shareholder in almost all of them simultaneously. When BlackRock speaks at a shareholder meeting, every CEO in the room listens. Critics call this a dangerous concentration of power. They argue that when one institution owns a stake in every major airline, every major bank, every major oil company, and every major tech firm at the same time, the normal rules of competition break down. Why would BlackRock want companies to compete hard against each other when they own shares in all of them? BlackRock's defenders say they are simply doing what investors have always done, providing capital to companies that need it. They argue that ordinary people's pension funds benefit from BlackRock's returns, that without firms like BlackRock, millions of retirees would have less financial security. Both things can be true at once. What is not in dispute is this: Larry Fink started with a $100 million loss and a borrowed $5 million. He turned that into the most powerful financial company the world has ever seen. A company so embedded in the global economy that when the system breaks down, governments call him first. You may never interact with BlackRock directly, but the next time you buy something from Apple, invest in a pension, or take out a mortgage, there is a very good chance BlackRock is somewhere in that transaction. They don't own the world, but they own enough of it that the difference barely matters. Every week on How They Live, we go behind the headlines and tell the stories that most people never hear. The companies that shape your world, the countries that rewrote the rules, the decisions made in boardrooms that affect every single one of us. If BlackRock surprised you today, wait until you see what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Drop a comment below and tell us which company or country should we cover next. We'll see you next week.